Part 1. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Seong-Lang Go. Chapter 1. Zyagyo, Zongdu. In the cold winter night of December, the cold wind swept through the streets, as if to take away the last bit of warmth in the world. With a clang, the big iron door of the fast food restaurant was shut by Li Enping. The girl next to her rubbed her hands carefully, exhaled a breath of hot air and said, "It's too cold, let's go catch the bus." The girl's name is Anna. She and Li Enping, who closed the iron door, are both college students nearby. They work part-time in this fast food restaurant together. Although she is dressed simply, her beautiful face, the unique youthfulness of a girl, and her straight and slender legs make her look very charming. Li Enping pulled the iron door hard, and after making sure it was locked, he shook his head and said, "No, I have something to do today, so I have to go to the other side." "Oh," Anna said softly, "then I'll leave first." Looking at Li Enping's pretty face, there was a hint of disappointment in her tone, but Li Enping didn't notice it. He said to himself, "Well, be careful when you walk alone at night. Call me if you have anything. I'll leave first." After that, Li Enping waved his hand and walked away without looking back. Anna behind him looked at his departing figure, and a faint blush appeared on her face unconsciously, and a hint of hesitation flashed in her eyes. Seeing Li Enping walking farther and farther, as if he was about to be drowned in the darkness, she took a deep breath and finally mustered up the courage to shout. "Hey, Li Enping, wait a minute." "What's wrong?" Li Enping turned around and looked in Anna's direction with a puzzled look. He just felt that the girl looked a little strange all day today, as if she had something on her mind, and she was always absent-minded when working. You. Anna's breathing became rapid when she noticed Li Enping's gaze. She opened her mouth but couldn't say a word. All the words she had thought of before were swept away. She felt that her mind was completely blank and she couldn't remember anything. Li Enping felt more and more strange. He walked back to Anna, touched the girl's forehead with one hand, frowned and said, "Why is your face so red? The weather is very cold. Are you catching a cold?" It was like she was suffocating. Feeling Li Enping's hand on her forehead, Anna's cheeks became even redder in an instant, and she seemed to be fainting. But he stopped stuttering, and just mumbled what he wanted to say just now. "There's a new aquarium opening in the city this weekend, can you go with me to see it?" "Oh, sure." Feeling that the other person's forehead temperature was normal and he didn't seem to have a cold, Li Enping felt relieved. "You probably don't have a cold, but it's cold these days, don't forget to wear more clothes and keep warm. Contact me this weekend, I'm leaving first." Anna's head was still dizzy, and when she returned to normal, Li Enping had already disappeared, leaving only the girls' cheers echoing in the street. Yet, Li Enping, who had already walked far away, naturally didn't hear the girls' cheers. His eyes swept around the street, and he muttered to himself, "I remember it was here, could it be gone today?" When passing by the street near the fast food restaurant these days, Li Enping always saw an old man with a child setting up a stall on the street. Zongdu has been getting colder these days. Because he saw the news online today that a homeless person was frozen to death on the street, Li Enping began to worry about the old man setting up a stall. Suddenly, Li Enping's eyes focused and he saw where the old man was. He walked slowly to the stall and said with a smile, "It's so cold, haven't you closed the stall yet?" The old man's face was full of wrinkles of years, and his hands were frozen like purple carrots without the protection of gloves. Seeing that there were customers coming, he immediately said enthusiastically, "Not yet, just take whatever you like, 2 yuan each." There was a 4 or 5-year-old boy lying on the old man's chest. The little boy was wrapped tightly and had fallen asleep long ago, with fatigue on his little face. Seeing this scene, Li Enping's face darkened and he didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the things on the stall. A few worn-out second-hand books. Some outdated earrings, bracelets, and toys. To be honest, I'm afraid there are not many people in the whole Zongdu who would pay for these. But Li Anping looked at them with relish, as if he was very interested. As a result, after some bargaining, he bought everything for 100 yuan. Before leaving, the old man stopped Li Anping. "Little brother, you are a good man. I know you bought these junk because you felt sorry for us. But I feel bad for doing this." Li Anping said with a smile, "What nonsense are you talking about, old man? I think these things are quite interesting. I plan to sell them at school." The old man shook his head and didn't argue much. He just took out a string of Buddhist beads from his arms and handed it to Li Anping. "I don't have any good things, this string of Buddhist beads has been blessed by a master, so I'll give it to you. May the Buddha bless you and be rewarded." After some refusing, Li Anping couldn't resist the old man's enthusiasm, and finally put the Buddhist beads on his right wrist in front of him. After helping the old man close his stall early, Li Anping walked towards the nearby bus station with a string of Buddhist beads in his right hand and a bag of things in his left hand. Li Anping's family is not wealthy. As an orphan, although he was adopted as a child, he has always taken care of himself since he was in school. Today's 100 yuan is already his income from a day's work, which may result in him having to eat cabbage and rice in the school cafeteria for several days in a row. But he doesn't feel pity. There are always dark corners in this world, but where there is darkness there is light. Justice and fairness are what most people in the world pursue. The various beauties in the human heart are the most important things in a person. At this time, Li Anping thought so in his heart and did so. However, he didn't notice that while these thoughts were swirling in his mind, the prayer beads on his right hand were emitting an inexplicable luster. When Li Anping returned to the community, it was close to midnight. This community is far away from the city, and the houses in the community are very old, with various small advertising flyers posted everywhere. Several small hair salons at the entrance are still flashing ambiguous red lights. The prosperity of Zongdu seems to have left no trace here at all. In the community, most of the residents with some ability have already moved away from here. The remaining people are either migrant workers who are greedy for cheap rent, or an old man who is reluctant to leave. Compared with the high-rise buildings in the city, the conditions here can be said to be extremely poor. But this is Li Anping's home. When he was a child, his grandmother picked him up here and adopted him. Li Anping lived with his grandma until he went to college and lived in a dormitory. However, his grandma is getting older, and Li Anping is a little worried about her living at home alone, so he comes back twice a week to visit and take care of his grandma. The entire community is in disrepair, and most of the remaining residents are relying on management fees. The properties were evacuated several years ago, and most of the street lights are broken. In the darkness, human eyes can only see a rough outline. However, Li Anping's footsteps gradually became brisk, because he was so familiar with this place that he could walk out with his eyes closed. And no matter how bad it is, it's still where he grew up. Every plant and tree around him has memories of his childhood. At this moment, a suppressed exclamation suddenly came from the green belt nearby. "Who?" Li Anping shouted in the direction of the sound. No response. In Li Anping's sight, the surroundings seemed to become darker. The green belt was silent, and only the sound of the cold wind could be heard in his ears. It seemed that the exclamation just now was just an illusion. Just when Li Anping frowned, wondering if he had been working too much recently and was too tired, another cry for help came over. "Help!" This time I heard it was a woman calling for help. After Li Anping heard this, he dropped the bag and rushed out without thinking. The woman was stopped mid-shouting. Li Anping could only run in the direction where the voice came from in his memory. After taking a few steps, a man and a woman lying on the ground came into view. The man's back was to Li Anping and he was lying on the woman's body. He covered the woman's mouth with one hand and kept moving his other hand over the woman's body, trying to peel off her top one by one. He didn't seem to notice that Li Anping had walked behind him. The woman's face could not be seen clearly, and she could only vaguely hear the sound of crying, but it was blocked by the man's big hands. Someone is raping. When Li Anping saw this, he was furious. He rushed down and pushed the man away, then punched him. The man who raped him obviously hadn't noticed Li Anping rushing behind him just now. He was suddenly attacked by a sneak attack and was stunned. All he knew was that his hands were dancing wildly, blocking Li Anping's fist. But he did not forget to curse. "Stop, stop fighting. Hit me again and I'll kill you." This man obviously lacks exercise and has weak limbs. He can bully weak women, but he is no match for Li Anping, who has been fighting in civilian areas since he was a child. Bang! Li Anping punched the man in the face and kicked him to the ground. After hearing what the other party said, anger suddenly emerged again, and I almost couldn't help but go up and beat the other party again. "You were the one who was beaten. I saw you raped with my own eyes. You should go to jail." The man sat up from the ground and looked at Li Anping in front of him. The evil fire kept rushing towards his forehead. "Where the hell did SB come from? Do you know who I am? I'll just kill your whole family with just one sentence. You bitch, please remember this, I'm going to kill you and make you beg me like a dog." Li Anping glanced at the man on the ground with disdain, then kicked him to the ground. When he saw the man lying on the ground, breathing in but not breathing out, he turned to look at the woman on the side. "Miss, are you okay?" The woman who was thrown to the ground by Shang Zhenbang just cried. Li Anping saw that although the other party was disheveled, he was still wearing underwear and everything. It was obvious that the man had not succeeded yet. He breathed a sigh of relief and asked, "Shall I take you to the hospital first? See if you are injured." Seeing that the woman still didn't answer, Li Anping sighed and carefully helped the woman up. The woman didn't resist, she just stood up. Although there were no lights around, Li Anping could already see the other party's appearance from such a close distance. It turned out to be Qing Shui Furong, a standard beauty. No wonder he was raped. After pulling the woman up, Li Anping was about to help her leave, but the man who had just fallen to the ground took the opportunity to get up and limped out. He did not forget to turn around and yell at Li Anping, "Wait for me." Seeing that Li Anping was about to catch up, he was scared and ran quickly. This kid, Li Anping was about to catch up, but then he thought again and asked the girl next to him, "Do you know this man?" "Yeah." Unexpectedly, the woman answered Li Anping this time. Li Anping was delighted and quickly asked, "My name is Li Anping, a college student at Tiancheng University, what's your name?" "Wei Shishi." The woman's answer was still very small, like a frightened deer. While the two were talking, Li Anping had already helped Wei Shishi back to the street, and the man who had just escaped had already disappeared. Just as he squatted down to pick up the plastic bag he had thrown away, a strong light and a loud roar came from behind him and Wei Shishi. When he turned around, he saw a white sports car rushing towards him head-on. Li Anping only had time to push Wei Shishi away from him, and his eyes went dark, and he had lost consciousness. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 2. The air in the hospital is filled with the smell of disinfectant. Li Anping opened his eyes and was about to make a move, but when his body moved slightly, a heartbreaking pain hit him, making him groan. Alarmed the nurse on the side. "Are you awake?" The nurse saw Li Anping twisting in pain, and quickly came over and pressed him back. "You were hit by a car and seriously injured. Don't think too much, take a rest first, I'll get a doctor right away." What follows is a series of inspections and greetings. But neither the nurse, the doctor, nor the patient on the side told him about his condition. Only the same look in their eyes made Li Anping's hair stand on end. "Doctor, when will I get better?" Unable to bear this look anymore, Li Anping couldn't help but ask. Don't get excited. Your car accident was very serious. You were almost dead when you were brought here. Although you later survived through your strong will to live, the sequelae of this car accident may stay with you for the rest of your life. You must have mental preparation. Li Anping's heart suddenly sank, and then he asked urgently, Doctor, will I be paralyzed? Alas, the doctor looked at Li Anping's face, and a trace of pity flashed in his eyes. Your central nervous system has been seriously damaged. Even after you recover, your limbs will be weak for a long time and difficult to move. If you want to fully recover, it can take 10 decades of exercise and therapy. Li Anping felt a pain in his chest, and there seemed to be a depressive energy that could not be released no matter what. With the last glimmer of hope, he looked at the doctor with a bitter look on his face and asked, If my limbs are weak, how different will it be from before my car accident? The doctor shook his head. You may not be able to get out of bed for more than half an hour every day. With good treatment and exercise, you may be able to extend this time with crutches. As if he was afraid of seeing Li Anping's desperate eyes, the doctor left the ward after finishing speaking. Li Anping was left lying on the bed stupidly, wondering what he was thinking. It wasn't until the police came to Li Anping that he came back to his senses. Looking at the police in front of him, his eyes glowed like never before. Did you catch the person who hit me? There was a girl named Wei Shishi with me. Have you found her? A total of 2 police officers came. One of them, a young policeman named Geng Zhong, looked at Li Anping who was lying on the hospital bed. A trace of resentment flashed in his eyes. Don't worry, the Wei Shishi you mentioned is also the one who caused the accident. The driver is already under our control. The nature of this car accident is extremely bad, and we will definitely punish the perpetrators. Li Anping later learned that the man who hit him with his car was the man he raped. The man's name was Shang Zhenbang. He was arrested by the police in the suburbs afterwards. However, after he was arrested, he did not say a word, and no matter how the police interrogated him, he did not say a word. Just ask the police to let you make the call. Fortunately, Li Anping pushed Wei Shishi away at that time, leaving her intact. So after listening to Wei Shishi's confession, the police understood most of it based on the clues left at the scene. Come here now to obtain Li Anping's confession. At that moment, Li Anping told the 2 police officers exactly what he remembered. After getting Li Anping's confession, he was different from the excitement of the young policeman. The older policeman already had a bad feeling in his heart. His name is Song Sishan, and he has been a policeman for more than 10 years. The sports car, the rape, and Shang Zhenbang's strange behavior of asking for a phone call without saying a word, all made Song Sishan instinctively feel a kind of danger. After hesitating for a long time, he still didn't tell Li Anping this. I just hope these are all my illusions. After the 2 policemen left, Li Anping's originally depressed mood became somewhat excited again. This time the evidence is conclusive and Shang Zhenbang is destined to go to jail. Not only that, he also has to compensate Li Anping a large amount of money. Justice will eventually be served. Although my body is no longer able to do physical activities. But the compensation from this car accident is definitely enough for Li Anping to finish college. And now society is a technological society. Even if he can't leave home, Li Anping believes that he can still make a name for himself by relying on his talents and the knowledge in his mind. Besides, there is a wheelchair. You can also go out in a wheelchair in the future. Besides, the doctor also said that after treatment and exercise, recovery is possible. Li Anping kept comforting himself, as if the current injury was really no big deal, but there was only a trace of gray in his eyes that could not be removed no matter what. Do you regret it? Maybe. Half a month has passed, and Li Anping can no longer remember how many times his grandma cried on his hospital bed. After Anna came once on the 3rd day of the car accident and learned about his condition, she never showed up again. Classmates and friends also came once, and the school even held a donation drive in his honor. However, after the school leaders were interviewed by reporters, there was no news about this matter. Li Enping still remembers the strange and sinister voices of his uncle and aunt, grandma's biological son and daughter-in-law, when they came to the ward. "Does this ward cost a lot of money per day? The old lady's monthly pension is so much. Now it's all handed over to the hospital. What will happen to the coffin in the future? Mom, this is not something that can be solved in a day or two, or with 100,000 or 80,000. I asked the doctor, this kid is paralyzed all over, he is a useless person, are you going to support him for life? What do you mean by waiting for the court to order the other party to pay compensation? Do you think I am stupid? Nowadays, any lawsuit will be sentenced to 5 or 6 years, and by then, the opportunity will be gone. I don't care, anyway, either he or I or he. If you want to support this bastard, then I, your own son, will be gone, and you can let this waste send you to the end." Faced with such questioning, Li Enping wanted to say something, but the reality seemed to be like a huge rock pressing on him, making him watch the two leave without saying a word. Days became more and more depressing, and the days of paralysis were more terrible than the physical torture, and more desperate than Li Enping imagined. Fortunately, there is still hope in this world. Now his only pleasure in life is to read the news online. Sports car, rich second generation, rape, plus bravery and car accident. As soon as the news about Li Enping appeared, it quickly occupied the headlines of major news and newspapers. The internet was full of people discussing this matter. Of course, public opinion was overwhelmingly on the side of Wei Shishi and Li Enping. Every progress of the incident, every report of the reporter, and every word of praise from people have become the greatest pleasure in Li Enping's life now. There is even a theme website for this incident on the internet, where countless people are waving flags and shouting, hoping that the government can severely punish the murderer. So what he is most looking forward to now is the opening of the court. Every day he puts his mobile phone on the bedside, waiting for the court to call. But strangely, Wei Shishi has not come to see him since his car accident, and has not even called him once, which makes him a little confused. And the uncle and aunt, after saying that to grandma, appeared again. The two nodded and bowed, and followed a middle-aged man in a suit and leather shoes with a proud face. "You are Li Enping, right?" The man raised his head high and looked at Li Enping with arrogance. "I am Su Lishuan from Kinman Law Firm. Here is 1 million yuan." The man took out a check from his arms. "As long as you change your testimony a little, it will be yours." Li Enping sneered angrily, "Oh? How do you want me to change it?" The man did not seem to notice the abnormality in Li Enping's tone, or he was too confident in the bank card in his hand, and said to himself, "It was too dark at the time, and you didn't actually see what the person looked like. It was only after knowing that the owner of the car was Shang Zhenbang that you thought that person was Shang Zhenbang. In fact, thinking about it afterwards, that person was not very similar to Shang Zhenbang. Just say that." Seeing Li Enping stretching out his hand, Su Lishuan showed an expected smile and handed the bank card to Li Enping. But the next scene was obviously beyond his expectations. Li Enping broke the bank card in half and threw it at Su Lishuan's feet. "Don't even think about changing your testimony. Tell Shang Zhenbang to prepare to spend the rest of his life in prison. As for the compensation, I will ask you for it after the lawsuit." After saying that, Li Enping looked at Su Lishuan with a face full of sarcasm and satisfaction, and he felt a great sense of satisfaction in his heart. Seeing everyone around him looking at him in surprise. Looking at the shocked and angry eyes of his uncle and aunt and Su Lishuan, Li Enping straightened his chest and felt proud of his answer. At this moment, his body seemed to be full of strength, and he felt that he had a clear conscience. Su Lishuan took a deep breath, his face turned very ugly, he looked at Li Enping deeply, and said word by word, "Good. Good. Good. I hope you don't regret it. After saying that, he left without looking back. After Su Lishuan left, Li Anping faced the angry faces of his uncle and aunt. Li Anping, are you sick? The aunt spit on his face. You, Li Anping looked at the aunt in surprise, as if he didn't expect her to do this. Li Anping, what do you want? The uncle grabbed Li Anping's shoulders with both hands and shook him fiercely. Our family has raised you so big. It's considered to be the most benevolent and righteous, right? My mother is over 70 years old, and now she has to come to take care of your excrement and urine every day. You are doing this now to make her anxious to death, right? But The aunt poked a finger on Li Anping's forehead and cursed, what else can you say, you little beast? What else can you do except causing trouble since you were a child? Do you know how much trouble you have caused this time? Shang Zhenbang's father is Shang Angguo, the mayor of Zhongdu City. Do you have to kill our whole family to feel at ease? The aunt cried and beat Li Anping's body. It was not until grandma came to deliver food that she stopped. Then there was another quarrel. During this period, Li Anping sat blankly at the head of the bed, his eyes were out of focus, and he felt a sharp pain in his heart. He couldn't tell whether it was because of the wound or because of what his aunt had just said. Why did it happen? Why did I insist on justice, but was scolded by my own relatives? Is it wrong to insist on justice? Li Anping is only 20 years old this year, but in the past 20 years, he can say with a clear conscience that he is a righteous person who pursues justice. Is it wrong for me to be brave and righteous? Is it wrong for me to stick to my principles? Is it wrong for me not to accept bribes and not to go along with bad people? Why did I make my grandma suffer? Why did I make my uncle and aunt turn against me by doing this? No, I am not wrong. A light flashed in Li Anping's eyes, as if he had figured something out. As long as I win the lawsuit, after Shang Zhenbang is sentenced and the court awards compensation, the facts will prove that I am right. The compensation money will be enough for grandma and my uncle and aunt to live a good life. There is nothing wrong with insisting on justice. Now it is just the darkness before dawn. On the other side of Zhongdu, in a magnificent apartment, Shang Zhenbang was lying on the sofa, pressing the remote control boredly, but his eyes did not look at the TV at all. Until the room was opened and he saw the middle-aged man who walked in, he jumped up suddenly. Dad, why did you give that guy money? How dare he hit me? Shang Zhenbang rushed to the man and said impatiently, if you only give me 100,000, I will immediately let Brother Huo and the others kill that guy. I wonder how he can testify in court. The man, Shang Zhenbang's father Shang Angguo, glared at Shang Zhenbang coldly, isn't the trouble you have caused big enough? You have made me lose face this time. And how many times have I told you, why are you hanging out with those gangsters in society? They are all useless and will only lead you astray. Shang Zhenbang obviously didn't dare to talk back, and could only listen to his father scolding him. Until a phone call interrupted him. Hello? Old Su, how is the matter going? Well, I know. Shang Angguo hung up the phone and frowned deeply. Shang Zhenbang carefully looked at Shang Angguo's face and asked, Dad, is it Uncle Su who called? How is the matter? Li Anping refused to accept the money. He said he would never change his confession. Hearing this, Shang Zhenbang immediately became excited and shouted, I said this kid is restless, right? Dad, he thinks the money is too little and wants to blackmail us. Just listen to me and kill him directly. Leave it to me. I will definitely not leave any handle. Bang. Shang Angguo slammed his fist on the table and cursed, it's all your fault, you bastard. Stay at home this month. When this matter is over, go abroad immediately and don't let me see you again. I will be responsible for the next thing. Don't mess around with me, and don't let your brother know. He is over there now, and it's a critical moment. Yes. I know. Seeing Shang Angwo get angry, Shang Zhenbang immediately lowered his head and became honest. But he was secretly happy in his heart. Ha ha ha, when I go abroad, I can still fly freely in the sky and swim freely in the sea. My dad can no longer control me. I can also go and play with my brother. Haha. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Go. Chapter 3. He wanted to rape me, then Shang Zhenbang came to save me, and finally he wanted to kill us, so Zhenbang knocked him to the ground with his car in court. Wei Shishi pointed at Li Anping and said coldly, "He is the rapist." The development of the whole incident suddenly took a 360-degree turn. A turn that Li Anping could never have dreamed of. Li Anping left the court with a blank mind, and only Shang Zhenbang's rampant laughter before leaving was like a knife stabbing his chest, making him breathless. According to our station, the rape and hitting case that attracted the attention of the general public recently has made new progress. Rapist, pretending to be a hero? Is it the police's dereliction of duty? Or is it the lack of system? Some people broke the news that Li Anping was originally a gangster in society. He used to beat his adoptive grandmother and took the pension for himself. This time he was tempted by beauty, which was expected. It is reported that after the incident, Li Anping threatened the victim, saying that if she did not do what he said, he would kill her whole family. Shang Zhenbang said that Li Anping called him after the incident and said that if he did not give him 5 million, he would sue Shang until he went to jail. Tiancheng University expelled Li Anping on the same day after receiving the news of his rape case. It said that the school still needs to strengthen students' moral education. Shang Zhenbang's bravery and being framed should cause us to think deeply. This shows that there are still big loopholes in our country's judicial system. As news appeared on TV and the internet, Li Anping's heart became colder and colder. Every time the nurses and doctors in the hospital looked at him with strange eyes, his body could not help but tremble. I didn't lie. I didn't cheat. It was Shang Zhenbang and his people who wronged me. Wei Shishi, that bitch, was bought by them. But no one believed him, only Grandma still took care of him as usual, working tirelessly for him. Grandma sat by the bed and advised, "Xiaoan, it's okay, good people will be rewarded. I believe you were wronged, we just need to appeal again, and the truth will come out." But things are only going in a worse and worse direction. The court's result came out soon. Shang Zhenbang was acquitted, and Li Anping, if he did not appeal, would face more than 10 years in prison. Although considering that he is currently severely disabled and will not go to jail directly, there will be someone to watch over him 24 hours a day. And his medical expenses have also become a huge burden. "Dr. Song, please give me a few more days, I will borrow money right away, and I will give it to you as soon as I borrow it." Grandma held the doctor's hand with both hands and begged bitterly. The wrinkles on her face during this period are more than those in the past 30 years. Her hands are as thin as 2 bamboo poles, which is caused by long-term malnutrition. Dr. Song said helplessly, "Grandma, you can't beg me. It's the hospital's rule to pay for medical treatment. I can't do anything about it. And to be honest, Grandma, don't bother with Li Anping. Let him destroy himself." Grandma just kept begging Dr. Song. Seeing that he was unmoved, she knelt down suddenly and kowtowed, "I beg you, Dr. Song, Anping was raised by me since he was a child. I can't just watch her and ignore her." Dr. Song was startled and hurriedly helped Grandma up. "Hey, get up quickly, this will have a bad impact. Hey, okay, 1 month, the hospital can only give another month at most. After 1 month, if you still can't get the money together, you really can't live here. Sorry, all the evidence has been tampered with by them." The young policeman Geng Zhon came to the ward, his fists clenched white. He is Li Anping's only friend at present, and the only policeman who is still investigating this case. The other policemen have already seen the opportunity and avoided it. But how can he, a novice policeman, overturn Li Anping's case? Every time he came to visit Li Anping, he could not stop cursing Shang Zhenbang and Wei Shishi, that bitch. After she came out of the court, she got into Shang Anbang's car and left. What a bitch. In addition to his friends, although Li Anping was lying in the hospital, strangers came to see him almost every day. You scum. A bowl of water was poured on his head, and he was indifferent. You scum, why don't you die? A man broke through the police's obstruction, came to Li Anping's bedside, and punched him. Li Anping endured it silently. Sorry, we have to take back the donation to the school, and this is your certificate of incomplete studies. The school representative came to his bed and said in a sarcastic tone. Li Anping had no reaction. He lay on the bed like a dead man. Only the tears in the corners of his eyes showed that he was still alive. Li Anping is innocent. It is obvious that Shang Anbang and Wei Shishi colluded to wrong him. Shang Anbang's father is the mayor of Zhongdu City. Li Anping was framed. The author is mentally retarded. No explanation. There are people who support a scum like Li Anping. I'm enlightened. The facts are in front of us. Li Anping's rape and murder case is proven by irrefutable evidence. People like the author, who is sensational and cheating for experience, are really disgusting. Don't reply, everyone. You are cheating for replies and popularity. Li Anping posted on major websites, looking for his last comfort, but his words were quickly drowned out by countless saliva. The other party was too thorough. Not only did they take care of the whole government, but they also did not spare the internet. A large number of internet promoters cooperated in spreading rumors. Even if some rational people spoke out and suspected that Li Anping was wronged, they were quickly drowned in the vast army of water. Li Anping persisted alone and moved to many well-known forums and websites, but the final result was that his account was blocked. He now has almost no social connections. From elementary school to university, no one is willing to be associated with him as a scumbag. The only one who often came to see him was the young policeman Geng Zhong. After scolding Shang Zhenbang and Wei Shishi, he always vowed, "Don't worry, don't give up. I have been investigating privately and will overturn the case one day." This may be Li Anping's only hope now. A few weeks later, on a rainy night, big raindrops hit the glass windows, making a continuous snapping sound. Geng Zhong walked into Li Anping's ward again, and his face was very ugly. "What's wrong?" Li Anping looked at him but was not worried. No matter how bad things are, can they be worse than what he is doing now? You should stay calm and don't get excited about what I will tell you later. What's wrong? Am I accusing you again? Your grandma, she's in trouble. After hearing this, Li Anping felt dizzy and almost fainted. He held on and stared at Geng Zhong. "What's going on? Although you gave up treatment, your grandma didn't give up. She helped you raise medical expenses without telling you. She sold lunch boxes on the street. Yesterday, she was cooking at home and was poisoned by gas. Well done." Brother Huo Shang Zhenbang nodded with satisfaction and said to the bald man in front of him, "This is for you." "It's nothing, Master Shang. If you hadn't taken care of us brothers, we wouldn't be here today." In the box of the luxury hotel, Shang Zhenbang and 3 people who looked like social youth sat together, drinking and chatting. "My dad is watching me closely now. I may have to go abroad soon. If it weren't for you, Brother Huo, I would have been so angry that I would have died." Shang Zhenbang's face was red from drinking, and he said with a big tongue. Brother Huo on the opposite side was smiling. How dare brothers neglect what Master Shang ordered? "Come on, Alung, Laonyo, toast Master Shang." The other 2 young men on the side also came up to toast Shang Zhenbang. These 2 people looked strong and powerful, with muscles all over their bodies, looking like bodybuilders. Now they kept pouring wine to Shang Zhenbang and kept praising him. After eating and drinking, Shang Zhenbang suddenly sighed. Brother Huo looked at it and immediately asked, "What's wrong, Mr. Shang? Is there anything bothering you?" "We killed the old one, but there's still a young one left." Shang Zhenbang sighed. "It's a pity that the kid was kept in the hospital by the police. This time he got a bargain." Brother Huo suddenly waved his hand when he heard this, and Ulung and Laonyo walked out of the room to make sure no one was eavesdropping around. "Mr. Shang, in fact, this man is being watched by the police. There are ways." "Oh," Shang Zhenbang heard this, his face showed joy. "Brother Huo? Do you have a way?" "What way do I have? If your father is willing to take action again, that kid will be crushed to death immediately," Brother Huo flattered. "Humph, my dad made that kid go to jail, he has already scolded me to death, how can I let him do it again?" Halfway through his words, Shang Zhenbang's cell phone suddenly rang. "Hello. Got it, got it." Upon hearing the voice of the person, Shang Anping smiled. "Baby, I'm having dinner with my friends. Do you want to buy an LV bag?" "No problem, just use the credit card I gave you." "It's no problem to buy the whole store." After a bit of nausea, Shang Anping hung up the phone reluctantly. Huo Ji beside him asked curiously, "Shang Xiao, your girlfriend's call? You are so loving." "I didn't expect Shang Xiao to love his girlfriend so much." Shang Zhenbang smiled and said, "Hey, Shishi and I didn't know each other until we fought. When I went to her to change her testimony, we talked for a few words and we immediately hit it off. I must have taken a fancy to your money." Although he was complaining in his heart, Huo Ji didn't dare to show it. "Shang Xiao, about that kid Li Anping. By the way, Huo Ji, do you have a way? If you have a way to kill him, I will give you 1 million ST money," Shang Zhenbang said, patting his chest. "Okay, Mr. Shang, since you said that, we brothers will risk our lives to vent your anger. Money is secondary. The key is that we brothers cannot bear this anger." Brother Huo's eyes lit up and he said fiercely. At that moment, the two of them were warm again. After a few glasses of white wine, the atmosphere was warm. The two of them went to the nightclub arm in arm and had a night of romance. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 4. White sky, white earth. Nothing but white. Li Anping walked alone on this white earth. Endless white, nothing but Li Anping. His eyes were empty, his face was full of confusion. He walked alone on this earth. Keep walking. Keep walking. Suddenly, a black crow flew over his head. Quack. Quack. The crow stopped beside him, tilted its head, and looked at Li Anping, who kept moving forward, as if wondering why he kept walking. Quack. Quack. The crow flew to Li Anping's shoulder and looked at him quietly. Li Anping seemed to be unaware, his face was wooden, he still walked forward, kept walking. The crow suddenly opened its mouth, its upper and lower jaws opened 180 degrees incredibly, blood kept flowing from the corners of its mouth, and the whole mouth seemed to be torn apart. The big mouth bit towards Li Anping's head. Li Anping had no resistance. His neck was broken and his whole head was swallowed up. The blood in his chest gushed out from the wound like a fountain. Ah! Li Anping woke up on the bed. How many times? Since he lost the lawsuit, he has had the same nightmare countless times. Every time he was eaten by a crow. But after waking up from the nightmare again today, Li Anping did not worry or think about it anymore. Because, compared to the world in the nightmare, reality is the real hell. Grandma is really dead. He let out a painful roar in his throat, his limbs curled up, like a poor worm lying on the bed. My only relative is also dead. Am I really wrong? Why is it wrong to insist on justice? Why does the pursuit of justice have such a result? Why does God punish me like this? Li Anping wanted to cry, but his tears had already dried up. He wanted to beat the bed with his hands, but he couldn't even raise his hands. He even needs help with his urination and defecation now. He can only whimper softly every midnight, punishing himself in nightmares. Ah, Li Anping slammed his head against the bed. Only the physical pain could slightly ease his mental despair. Outside the ward, the policeman sent by the court to watch over him knocked hard on the door, making a bang. He cursed. "Don't scream like a ghost. This is a ward. Don't disturb others' rest." Li Anping did not respond, but he did stop screaming. When all methods were exhausted, when all hope disappeared, when the only relative died, Li Anping was desperate. He thought of death. "Don't you want revenge?" At this moment, a voice passed through his mind. Li Anping looked around in doubt, but did not see any figure. "Don't look around, I'm in your heart. I'll ask you again, don't you want revenge?" The voice appeared again, speaking in a tempting tone. This time Li Anping heard it, and the other party's voice actually sounded in his mind, but perhaps because he had encountered a big change, or perhaps he thought he was hallucinating, he was not surprised at all, and did not even answer the voice. "Do you want to be immersed in sadness like this?" So decadent. Seeing that Li Anping did not answer him, the voice had to ask again, "You punish yourself like this, which will only let the real enemy go unpunished." Li Anping said bitterly, "Revenge? Who should I seek revenge? I'm just a useless person who needs others to help me eat and go to the toilet. It's a problem for me to survive, so what revenge can I talk about?" He. The voice sneered, "Your body is not a problem, as long as you want revenge, I can help you." Li Anping's heart flashed with a trace of heat, and his chest seemed to be hot. "How can you help me? Don't ask too much. Let me ask you first, how much are you willing to pay to heal your body?" Li Anping said impatiently, "I have nothing. As long as you can heal my body, I am willing to pay anything." He didn't notice that the topic of revenge at the beginning had turned into healing the body. The voice didn't respond immediately after hearing Li Anping's words. Until a few minutes later, when Li Anping almost thought that everything just now was just his illusion, the voice said meaningfully, "The things you think are very precious may be useless to me, and some things that are worthless in your eyes are very important to me." Li Anping didn't understand what the other party meant for a while, and just listened to what the other party said. The policeman outside, his name is Long Tao, poor and destitute, living a life of idleness and waiting for death, these words best describe him. His classmates of the same period have been promoted, some have become rich, but he is the only one who is still fighting on the front line, living on a meager salary. He is over 30 years old and doesn't even have a wife. The only thing he can do is complain about the injustice of society and the incompetence of his superiors. "What is his relationship with me?" Li Anping asked puzzledly. "Also, how do you know his situation?" "I will tell you the reason later, and now, I just want you to touch his body with your right hand." Li Anping's tone seemed hesitant. "Is this enough?" The voice burst into laughter, like a devil's whisper. "How could it be so simple? I just want to borrow your hand to knock him out. I don't want to be disturbed during the treatment later." "Okay, I will do as you say." After a while, neither of them was communicating, and the entire ward seemed quiet. Li Anping turned his body sideways and rolled toward the inside of the bed little by little. Because his limbs were nearly paralyzed and he was wrapped in a quilt, he moved very slowly. With a pop, Li Anping fell off the bed and hit the floor with a soft sound. "What's going on?" Long Tao at the door heard the crash and immediately opened the door and rushed in. The hospital bed was parallel to the door, and the direction Li Anping was leaning toward was the inside of the bed. Long Tao, who came in, could not see him for a moment. Worried that something had gone wrong, he rushed to the other side of the hospital bed, but as soon as he saw Li Anping fall to the ground, he was grabbed by the other side's feet. "What are you doing?" Anna felt a little anxious inside. After visiting Li Anping last time, she was about to study abroad. This is a behavior in which universities collect money and send students to foreign universities to participate in other university courses. Originally, she wanted to ask Li Anping to go to the aquarium together before the study tour. Unexpectedly, Li Anping was involved in a car accident. Then, when Anna returned to Zhongdu after a month of studying abroad, Li Anping had become a scum that everyone wanted to beat. She hesitated for a long time, and finally ran over that night. At least listen to him tell what happened. No matter what, Anna can't put the bright, kind-hearted, justice-seeking Li Anping back together with the criminal in the report. Taking a deep breath, she walked towards the ward full of anxiety. "What did you do?" Li Anping asked, suppressing his anger. "Haha, you don't have to shout so loudly, you can communicate with me directly mentally," the voice replied maliciously. "As for what I did, he, wasn't it you who did it from beginning to end?" Li Anping looked at the body lying on the ground and said in disbelief, "You killed him? How could you kill him? You said you just knocked him out." "Humph, it's really disappointing. After so many things, haven't you realized it yet? The world is constantly changing, and the only thing that remains unchanged is human stupidity. Their filth and ugliness are worse than cesspits. Makes me sick. Do you know what this policeman thinks of you? In his eyes, you are just a piece of garbage. He has sold a lot of your information to the media. He has even thought of torturing you more than once. After you experience more things, you will find that there are countless sins hidden behind everyone. Successful people suffer criticism, hostility, and jealousy, while losers are despised, oppressed, and enslaved. All human beings show malice towards others, consciously or unconsciously. In the end, no matter who it is, all he can get is boredom and helplessness." Every word in the voice sounded like an evil whisper, and Li Anping felt as if he was actually receiving the sermons of some kind of cult. But he still couldn't let go. Just now, a life passed away in his hands. Just after he touched Long Tao's leg with his hand, the other party fell down immediately. Waves that were imperceptible to the naked eye surged from Long Tao's body to the Buddhist beads in Li Anping's right hand. The beads should have been confiscated by the guarding police, but now they suddenly appeared again. Li Anping looked at the Buddhist beads that suddenly appeared on his right wrist and seemed to notice something. "Are you inside this prayer bead? What kind of evil thing are you? I want to destroy you. I can't let you harm others anymore." Li Anping pulled off the prayer bead. "The prayer beads are just a temporary shelter, and now, I have found a better one," the voice said with a proud smile. "Besides, are you sure you want to interrupt your cooperation with me? Your body will be destroyed soon." "Cure." Li Anping threw the beads out of the window. "No, I won't listen to any of your words, you devil." "I said, I am no longer on the beads." The voice still appeared in Li Anping's mind. "It was your ignorance, kindness, and resentment that woke me up, and the death of the policeman was also caused by you. You can no longer quit." "I can, as long as I don't promise you anything anymore." While the two were arguing, Anna walked into the ward. She opened her eyes wide and looked at Li Anping and Long Tao, who were lying on the ground, and said in surprise, "What's wrong with you?" "Kill her, she witnessed everything." "You must kill her immediately to silence her. Put your hands on her body, and I will eat her soul." That voice bewitched Li Anping. "Don't even think about it." Li Anping shouted to Anna, "Anna, help him up quickly. He suddenly fell ill. Please ask the doctor to take a look at him." He was still worried that the other party was not dead. Oh, Anna seemed to have reacted and ran over in a panic to help Long Tao's body up. "Don't worry about this for now." Li Anping quickly stopped her, fearing that she would also be attacked. "Hurry and go to the doctor, he is not breathing." Okay, Anna was a little at a loss. After hearing Li Anping's instructions, she subconsciously followed them and ran out the door to find a doctor. But as soon as she went out, she felt like she had hit a mountain and was pushed back by a huge force. Old Nyo, it seems that we came at the right time. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Seong Lang Go. Chapter 5. Alung walked slowly into the ward, looking at Li Anping and Anna on the ground with an unscrupulous look. He lit a cigarette in his right hand, completely ignoring the no smoking sign of the hospital. Looking at Long Tao, who seemed to be unconscious, Alung smiled. I was originally wondering how much money it would cost to bribe this policeman, but I didn't expect you to save it for me. After saying that, he threw the cigarette away and grabbed Anna, who was pushed to the ground by her with one hand. Ah! Anna was about to scream, but Alung blocked her mouth with his hand. She only felt a huge force coming from the other's hand, making her unable to move. Hush! Be obedient and don't scream. Alung stood behind Anna, covering her mouth with one hand and hugging her around the waist with the other hand. He exhaled a breath of hot air on Anna's neck, and his eyes became a little greedy. He looks good, but it's a pity. How could you fall in love with a hapless cripple? Anna's body trembled, and she was hugged from behind by a strange man. Her eyes were full of fear, and she could only look at Li Anping for help. Who are you? What do you want to do? Li Anping stared at Alung and others, and roared in his heart, hurry up and save him. I know you can do it, the voice said indifferently, but why should I do this? This woman saw us kill Long Tao. If he is killed now, it will be a good opportunity to prevent us from silencing him. You devil! Li Anping's eyes had to soften. Let him go. You are here to find me, right? She has nothing to do with me. Haha, you glared at me so fiercely just now, I thought you were going to fight me to the death, hero. Alang laughed wildly. He stuck out his tongue and licked Anna's cheek vigorously. But I won't let go. What can you do? Seeing Li Anping lying on the ground, with eyes that seemed to be spitting fire, Alang's expression became more and more proud. Okay, Alang, you should have let this woman go just now. Laonyo followed Alang and closed the ward, saying expressionlessly. Compared with Alang's tone of a gangster, he is more like a professional killer. Anyway, there is someone to take care of it this time. It's okay to take one more person, Alang said nonchalantly, while one hand touched from the belly, and moved towards Anna's upper body little by little. Anna, who was hugged tightly, felt the invasion of the other party, but she had no power to resist, especially in front of Li Anping. She was shocked and scared, crying anxiously, and tears kept flowing from the corners of her eyes. The other party called out the nickname of our people so easily. Obviously they don't intend to let us go. We must find a chance to kill them. In Li Anping's mind, the voice came to mind again. Seeing that Li Anping had no reaction, he continued to urge, these two are not ordinary people. We must strike first. Do as I say. We sneak attack and kill one first, then we have a chance. I can't kill people, just stop them. Stupid. Naturally, other people won't hear the conversation between the two of them. Laonyo frowned when he saw Alang's appearance. Don't make trouble. The pressure from the Shang family is already very great this time. You don't want to make Brother Huo angry. Humph. Alang looked at Laonyo with a little dissatisfaction, grabbed Anna's neck with one hand, lifted her up, and raised her above his head. Then we'll play later. After saying that, Alang swung his hand and threw Anna against the wall. He let her head break and then fell to the ground and passed out. Blood flowed from the back of Anna's head and covered the ground. What are you doing? This scene shocked Li Anping. Seeing that the other party threw Anna against the wall without any care, he finally realized that the two people in front of him were different from ordinary criminals. They were more unscrupulous and cruel. You still have time to care about others. Do you know that someone has spent money to take your life? Alang walked to Li Anping step by step, squatted down, and looked at Li Anping lying on the ground, as if he was looking at a toy. Laonyo behind him said coldly, hurry up and don't say anything extra. Alang, who was squatting in front of Li Anping, shrugged his shoulders. He grabbed Li Anping's hair with one hand and lifted his head to the same level as his eyes. Then let's not say any more nonsense and just kill you directly. Boom. There was a loud noise. Alang pressed Li Anping's head and smashed it hard to the ground. Li Anping felt that his head hurt as if it was about to explode. Red blood flowed out of his ears and nose like dye. His consciousness began to blur and his vision was covered with a layer of red. Only the crazy voice came from his mind. Power users, damn it. They are power users. I can't absorb their souls now, quickly let go of your body control completely. Otherwise we will all die. But Li Anping was almost knocked unconscious by this collision. If the owner of the voice hadn't used his energy to protect his brain, he would have died long ago. How could he answer the other party's request? Damn it! Bastard, you idiot! Why did I choose you? The voice cursed angrily, but it couldn't change the current situation at all. Alung picked up Li Anping's head and saw that the other person's nose was bruised and his face was swollen. He was a little dissatisfied. Your head is really hard. If an ordinary person were hit like this by me, he would have exploded into tofu. It's a waste. Normally, I might let you go, but this time the money is really quite large, so I can only hit you again. He smiled and said, those rich people are really cruel. It's not enough to kill them when they are old. They won't even spare you, a cripple. Hearing these words, Li Anping's eyes flashed, and his groggy brain seemed to clear up for a moment. He managed to open his eyes and asked intermittently, you mean, old man? My grandma, is you, did they do? Oh? Are you still conscious? Alung said in surprise, it's amazing. The blow just now was enough to crack your skull. Your brain has suffered severe internal bleeding, but you can still speak. Alung poked Li Anping's head in surprise, and when he saw the other party screaming, he showed a cruel smile. Okay, as a reward, I will let you be a sensible person. Your grandma is also one of ours. Yes, but I didn't do it, but the person who paid for it is the same person, you should know it. Shang, Zhen, Bang. Hearing Li Anping say these three words, for some reason, Alung's heart suddenly felt cold for no reason, as if he had made some huge mistake. The unusual movement in the room finally attracted the attention of others, and footsteps sounded outside the corridor. Stop playing, Launyo urged again, solve it quickly. If someone sees us, it will be difficult for Brother Huo to explain. Can you help me get revenge? In the silent shouting, Li Anping could only see a black shadow wandering over his body. Hey, yes, as long as you make a deal with me. Devil's deal, what else do you want from me? I have nothing left. Do you still have room to refuse? Well, as long as you help me take revenge, then as a reward, whether it's my body or my soul, you can use whatever you want from me. He, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. After listening to Li Anping's words, the voice first smiled, and then laughed louder and louder, and laughed more and more proudly, until Li Anping's whole mind was filled with the other party's laughter. Alung was about to press Li Anping's head down, but found that his hand was tightly grasped and did not move at all. Li Anping held Alang's arm. He raised his head and looked at Alang, with only a trace of blood remaining in his eyes. There were strange noises coming from his body, as if something was crawling inside his body. I don't need your soul, nor your body, I just need to make a deal with you. The soul power I just absorbed is enough to give you physical strength beyond ordinary people in a short period of time, but it can only last for 5 minutes. You must be able to kill them in 5 minutes and then escape. The words that the voice said before were still echoing in Li Anping's mind, and then a cruel and evil force began to spread throughout his body. The physical injuries healed at an incredible speed, his strength increased, the muscle fibers became thicker, and the bones became stronger, allowing him to exert greater power. Li Anping felt as if he had been reborn, and his physical condition was countless times better than any other day in the past. Ah! He roared angrily, raised his fist and hit Alung's chest crazily. Alung showed no sign of weakness and punched Li Anping in the stomach as well. Alung thought, my ability is to strengthen muscle groups. Are you going to compete with me for strength? But the result of the fight was completely opposite to what he thought. With one punch, Alung's chest was almost cracked, his ribs were broken in half, and his mouth kept vomiting blood, but his opponent seemed unharmed, as if Alung's attack was just an itch. At this time, Alung couldn't care about anything anymore. He screamed, and his arms expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye, almost twice as thick as before. After barely punching Li Anping away, the whole person quickly retreated. Laonyo. Laonyo had already reacted, but he didn't expect that Alang, as an ability user, would be defeated so easily. Seeing Alang retreat, he pulled out the dagger from his waist and stabbed Li Anping in the waist. Kill them all, eat them all, soul, body, nothing left. At this time, Li Anping's eyes were already red, and his expression became more and more crazy. He only has Alung in his eyes now. Letting Laonyo stab the dagger into his side, he pushed the opponent away, kicked off his feet, and rushed towards Alung again. Holding Alung's shoulders, he bit the other person's neck. The severe pain only made him crazier. Li Anping didn't know any formal fighting methods at all. He was just fighting instinctively at the moment. There was only a tearing sound, and his mouth bit Alung's neck. With a pull and pull, a large piece of meat was taken off. Alung's screams instantly resounded throughout the hospital, and his entire neck was almost torn off. Blood spilled out from the wound like a fountain, dyeing both him and Li Anping red. But Alang was a person with special abilities after all, and he could control and strengthen his muscle groups. He didn't die immediately after being seriously injured. Instead, he struggled even more violently. He was stunned by Li Anping's madness at this moment, and the only thing he wanted was to survive. As a large piece of muscle in his neck was torn off, he punched Li Anping like crazy, and finally took advantage of the gap when the other party retreated, broke open the door, and fled without looking back. With a puff, Laonyo took this opportunity to stab Li Anping in the back again, piercing his lung. Li Anping roared, turned around and slapped him away with a palm, and then rushed out with Alang. Laonyo was just an ordinary person. Although he was a retired Special Forces soldier, his physical fitness could not be compared with that of a person with special abilities. He was slapped away by Li Anping's huge force, and the whole person was almost broken apart, dizzy, and unable to stand up. When he came to his senses, he only heard the sound of bones and flesh in the corridor outside the ward, as well as Alang's increasingly weak roar and the screams of other patients and nurses. 10 seconds later, when Alang's face was covered in blood and there were several tooth marks on his forehead, he finally crawled back to the door and stretched his hand to Laonyo, as if he wanted to ask for help. But before he could call for help, he was grabbed by the head by a bloody hand and dragged back. Only a series of chewing sounds came from outside the door. Until a heart-wrenching howl, the sound stopped abruptly. Monster, monster! Seeing this, Laonyo swallowed a mouthful of saliva and suddenly jumped out of the window. He couldn't walk outside the door. And the window was only the 3rd floor. With his skills, he would only suffer minor injuries at most. After rolling on the grass downstairs to relieve the impact, Laonyo ran towards the hospital gate in a panic. 5 minutes later, a large number of police cars finally arrived, but all they found was a fainted girl, the body of a policeman and a pile of bloody wreckage. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Seong Lang-go. Chapter 6. Dim lights, pungent smell. Although this was not the first time he came to the morgue, Huang Linjun still felt uncomfortable. Pushing open the door of the morgue, Alung's body was lying on the autopsy table. The trays around him still contained various blood, pieces of meat and some kind of tools that Huang Linjun couldn't name. The victim was found in hospital yesterday. Originally, this kind of murder case was not within Huang Linjun's jurisdiction, but because of the unusual nature of the case, the police chief of Zhongdu City pulled him out of bed with a phone call. That's pretty rough. Seeing the corpse in front of him again, Huang Linjun still couldn't help but frown. The limbs were broken, the neck was torn open, large areas of tissue were bruised throughout the body, and a hole was opened in the skull. If Huang Linjun hadn't analyzed the case in advance, he would have almost thought it was the work of some perverted murderer. He stood by the autopsy table and waited for a while. Forensic Dr. Zhang Wei walked in from the door. "They actually called you over? Haha, now the guys from the crime team can be free." Zhang Wei seemed a little surprised to see Huang Linjun looking at the corpse. While packing up the equipment, he said, "I have sent the autopsy report to your mailbox. Are you still in the mood to look at this pile of minced meat? You know, the two novices who delivered the corpse yesterday almost vomited out their livers. To be honest, this is the most brutal corpse I have ever seen in all my years of doing this." Huang Linjun turned his head to look at Zhang Wei and smiled, "I can't help it. I am the only one in the entire bureau who can handle this kind of thing. I came here today to ask you about some things that cannot be seen in the autopsy report." "Situation," Huang Linjun said meaningfully. He knew that the medical examiner was writing an autopsy report and would always find some extraordinary circumstances when encountering cases related to people with abilities. These extraordinary circumstances are obviously results that most upper-level police leaders cannot accept. You can't tell your boss that the victim was killed by a person with superpowers. At least it can't be written like this in writing, otherwise you will be carrying it at a police station in a remote area for the rest of your life. Therefore, although ability users are almost an open secret in the upper echelons of many government departments, there are no written records about them in any official documents of Daxia. Therefore, when forensic doctors encounter cases related to people with abilities, they often use Chunkai's writing method to reduce, and give a reasonable explanation or hypothesis. The true facts of the case are often known only to secret police officers like Huang Linjun who specialize in paranormal cases. "I knew it," Zhang Wei muttered, but still answered Huang Linjun's question. "What was the cause of death?" Huang Linjun casually opened the deceased's information and asked. "Heavy arterial bleeding, plus half of his brain being torn out of the skull. No matter what the situation, he is dead." Zhang Wei twitched the corner of his mouth. "It is worth noting here," and here he pointed to the body's arms and neck. "The size of these arms is obviously not in line with the size of normal humans. They are almost 4 times as thick as ordinary people, and they are all muscle, with almost no fat. I believe he can kill a bear with his bare hands. Maybe he is a fitness enthusiast. He specializes in exercising upper body muscles." Huang Linjun was unsure, "Is this possible? Have you ever seen any bodybuilder whose muscles are below the elbow?" "Popeye," Zhang Wei shook his head, "any exercise affects the whole body. It is impossible to exercise only this part without involving the elbows, and above parts of his body, especially his shoulders and back, were pitifully thin, as if he had been malnourished for a long time, which was in stark contrast to his arms." Zhang Wei nodded and thought calmly, this wolf should be a mutant type of ability user, similar to the ability to control muscles, so the traces of damage caused on the scene can be explained. It was his power that caused it? But the murderer was able to tear him into pieces head on. "And the neck?" Zhang Wei pointed to the torn bronchus on the corpse and said. "Was it bit open?" Huang Linjun asked. "The murderer did not receive formal fighting training, or is there a deep hatred between the murderer and the victim? That's what you want to check." "I'm only talking about the corpse." Zhang Wei exhaled and said slowly, "The piece of meat was not found." "Huh?" Huang Linjun didn't react for a moment. "We didn't find the meat bitten off the neck." The whole hospital was searched, but nothing was found. Jiang Wei's eyes became darker, seeming to reveal some kind of fear. Generally speaking, even if the murderer bites the victim and bites off a piece of meat, he will spit it out immediately. Are you trying to say that? Huang Linjun said in disbelief. I don't want to think that, but guess what I found when I dissected his brain, Jiang Wei sneered. The weight of a normal adult's brain is 1,300 to 1,400 grams, but when I was in the skull of a corpse, I only found 500 grams. 800 grams of tofu curd is missing. Either the deceased was mentally disabled during his lifetime, or someone packed up the brain and took it away. Huang Linjun frowned deeply. You want to say that the murderer took away part of the deceased's brain? I'm more suspicious that he ate it. But you still need to investigate what happened, Zhang Weidao. I'm just responsible for telling you the true situation completely. As one of the 6 major powers in the world, although there is still a huge gap between the rich and the poor, the problem of food for the common people has long been solved. So Huang Linjun really couldn't imagine that in today's modern society, when even homeless people can't starve to death, there are still people who eat people? So he asked, what about the other policeman? Brain death. Jiang Wei said, to be precise, the brain suddenly stopped functioning. There was no external injury on the whole body except for the bruises from the fall, but the brain suddenly stopped functioning, and then the breathing stopped, and all the organs stopped working. I have never seen this kind of death. Are there any signs of poisoning? Huang Linjun touched his chin and said, could it be some disease? Did the deceased have no similar medical history before? No, nothing. If he hadn't stopped breathing, I would almost think he was still alive. Jiang Wei shook his head. He is much luckier than that pile of minced meat, and he can be buried decently. Huang Linjun felt that the case was more difficult, and thought to himself, is it done by a capable person again? If so, then it means that 2 capable people have taken action. Or the owner of multiple abilities. What is their relationship with the missing Li Anping? At this moment, Huang Linjun's cell phone suddenly rang. He picked up the phone and rushed out without saying a few words. He gritted his teeth and said, this bastard. Huang Wei behind him asked, what's wrong? Huang Linjun did not answer. His mind was all on the news brought by the phone. Just within 16 hours after the murder case in the hospital, another similar murder case occurred, which was also suspected to be done by a person with abilities. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Go. Chapter 7. In the dark alley, creepy crunching sounds kept ringing. Like a sewer rat chewing food. A black shadow lay on Laonyo's body, constantly taking out something and making terrifying chewing sounds. This is already an urban rural fringe area close to the outskirts of Zhongdu. It was approaching midnight, and no one noticed the horrific scene in this alley. Suddenly, the sound of chewing stopped, and a ray of moonlight shone down, illuminating Li Anping's pale face. His eyes were protruding and full of horror. When he saw the bloody old Nyo under him, he screamed and backed away, leaning against the wall. Li Anping looked at the blood on his hands and the wreckage on the ground, and finally couldn't help but vomited. He vomited for a long time, but he couldn't vomit completely. He always felt like something was churning in his stomach. When he saw the blood in his vomit, he screamed like crazy. If you want to attract the police, just keep calling. Li Anping raised his head and said angrily, what on earth did you do? You actually, let me eat, let me eat. You want to say cannibalism, the voice said with ill intentions, I didn't control you. From the beginning to the end, it was you who acted on your own. It didn't matter whether you killed the police or the first intruder. That's fine, you also chased down the second intruder, killed him, and then took a few bites of his meat, all of which you did yourself. How is that possible? Li Anping banged his head against the wall hysterically, how could I eat people? You devil, how could you let me eat people? He, I said I didn't control you, I just gave you power, the voice sneered, and everything you do after that is driven by instinct under the influence of power. Li Anping, you are born to be a devil. In the bottom of your heart that has been pursuing justice for more than 20 years, you hide the deepest malice of mankind. To you, killing is as natural as breathing, and destroying life is as simple as dressing or eating. These are your instincts and are the real you. Li Anping put his head in his hands and covered his ears. Nonsense, I don't want to listen to your temptation anymore, it's all you, you are the one manipulating me, you devil, you devil. You have ruined my life. The voice snorted coldly, before this, you had no life left. On the contrary, now that your body has been repaired, you have mastered powers that ordinary people cannot control, and you have a chance for revenge. The only price is to arouse one's own instinct. What a bargain! Besides, you promised me before that you would pay any price. Are you going to regret it now? Li Anping remained silent, with a ruthless look on his face, but I didn't promise you to eat people. What will it take for you to leave my body? I will never eat people again. The voice said again, I just need to make a deal with you. In the process of the deal, you will only get countless benefits and master power that ordinary people can't imagine. Faced with terrible truths, some people go mad, some break down, and some reveal their true nature. You have been using me from the beginning, right? The logical thinking in Li Anping's brain also started to work again. When you were in the ward, although you talked a lot, you didn't actually reveal any important information. Even what exactly did you do? What kind of existence it is, I have no idea. But at that time I was completely despondent, so I chose to believe you. He, it turns out that your choice was right. Really? Thinking about it calmly now, I feel that I was bewitched by you and just followed the path you wanted me to take. The voice remained silent, and Li Anping continued, if you want to trade, at least first tell me what you are and what is going on. He pointed at the body on the ground. Hey, the deal has been reached. It's too late to say anything now. When you relax, my power and your body have become inseparable. Speaking of which, should you take a look at your own body first? Huh? Li Anping stood up after hearing this and looked down at his body. He screamed in surprise, looked at his torso in disbelief, and shouted with all his limbs, how is this possible? I saw that his original body of 1.8 meters had become taller, almost reaching 1.9 meters, and the thin body that had been tortured in the hospital bed had become extremely strong, with patches of tendons on his arms and thighs. Coupled with the streamlined abdomen and chest muscles, it looks like a gymnast or swimmer. It was a huge difference from how he looked a day ago. At the same time, a seductive voice sounded in his ears again, my ability is to enhance myself by absorbing human souls and bodies. After inhabiting your body, you will also have the same ability. As long as you keep hunting humans, you will become stronger and stronger, and your body will become closer to perfection. As long as you hunt enough humans, one day you will become the god of the new world and run the world according to your own will. Don't even think about it, Li Anping said decisively, I will never eat people. And what you said is completely baseless. There is no evidence. How do you explain your current body? How do you explain everything you did in the hospital? The voice sarcastically said, you absorbed the soul of the policeman to fight against the person with the ability to control muscles, and then after eating that ability user, I was able to chase this man all the way and complete the initial transformation of my body. It's not me who did this. It's you, Li Anping roared, you can never use me again, you monster, I will not be at your mercy anymore. Humph, how do you get revenge? You don't have to be strong through cannibalism. But what do you do now? The police are looking for you, and the Shang family won't let you go. Although they are not sure that you killed the people in the hospital, yes, but I also know that you are missing. If they send a stronger ability user next time, you will die with your current strength. It's none of your business. Li Anping held his head and walked out of the alley. You're such a rookie. You don't even know how to hide the body after eating. Li Anping didn't say a word and just walked out of the alley. Although his thinking returned to normal, he was still very confused. He wanted to vent, but he didn't know what to do. He wanted to find someone to talk to, but he didn't know who to talk to. He was walking alone on the cold winter street. He was still wearing a hospital gown with blood stains on it, which made him look particularly weird. The cold wind blew on his body, but Li Anping didn't feel the slightest chill. There is an endless stream of power in the body. Although he is not as strong now as when the hospital exploded his power, his strengthened body has made him far superior to ordinary people. Gradually, Li Anping walked faster and faster, and he started running. The map of the entire Zhongdu city appeared in his mind, as if he was looking at the map in his hand. He had never felt that his memory was so strong. His arms swung powerfully, his feet stepped on the ground, and the huge thrust pushed his body forward. Feeling the wind blowing on his face, Li Anping kept running at the speed of an ordinary sprinter, as if he wanted to vent all the anguish in his heart. However, his strong body felt no fatigue at all, his limbs did not feel sore, his lungs breathed as normal, and there was not even a hint of wheezing. When he stopped, "I just feel my legs are slightly sore, just like ordinary people taking a walk after a meal." It wasn't until dawn that he realized that he had unknowingly traveled dozens of kilometers and returned to the community where he used to live. "Did I subconsciously come back here?" Li Anping murmured. Seeing the familiar plants and trees nearby, he experienced a feeling that things were different and people were different. The last time he came here, he was still a college student in his prime and a hero who acted bravely for justice. But now, he has become a rapist despised by everyone and a murderer pursued by the police. What on earth should I do? Walking down the street in despair, Li Anping looked confused. "Li Anping," at this moment, a female voice sounded from behind him, almost frightening him to death. He turned around and found that it was his neighbor's daughter, Wang Shui. What to do? Should I knock him out? Will he call the police? Could it be, kill her? Li Anping turned around and looked at Wang Shui blankly, just as he was feeling ashamed of his subconscious reaction. Wang Shui behind him spoke again. "Sorry, I got the wrong person." Wang Shui stuck out her tongue and winked at Li Anping. At 18 years old, she is in the prime of youth. In addition to her natural good looks, she looks even more adorable. She is also a popular figure among many boys in school. At this time, Li Anping looked down at himself and reacted. It turned out that after his body was transformed, both his body shape and temperament had changed greatly. Only his eyebrows still vaguely looked the same as before, so Wang Shui mistook him for it. But Wang Shui looked at Li Anping's dejected appearance and the blood stains on his clothes, and asked, "Are you okay?" "No. It's okay," Li Anping said nervously, "I just fell." Wang Shui can naturally see through such a mindless lie. However, living in this slum, Wang Shui saw many kinds of people. If she hadn't just felt that the other person was somewhat similar to Li Anping, she would not have come up to ask questions. "It's fine. There are no obstacles in the world that you can't overcome," Wang Shui said carelessly. "If you want to find a job, you can go to the market to find my father, Wang Qing, to help move the vegetables. It's better than hanging around every day." "Yes, I will consider it," Li Anping nodded, knowing that the other party misunderstood him as a beggar or a homeless person. But now he is no different from a tramp. I had heard before that Wang Shui's father, Wang Qing, was the boss of the vegetable market, and she liked to help some needy households in the community and became a figure similar to a big sister. Now it turns out that this is indeed the case. Watching Wang Shui leave, Li Anping suddenly felt warm in his heart. Maybe this world is very dirty, but it has not reached the moment of complete despair. Maybe it is only a small part, but there are still good people and good deeds in this world. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 8. Inside the elevator stood Li Anping's uncle Li Liping and Aunt Zhang Li, who were heading to the house left by Li Anping's grandmother after her death, with a slightly panicked look on their faces. After hearing the news of Li Anping's disappearance early this morning, Li Liping hurriedly brought his wife to his mother's house. Zhang Li said with some worry, "They won't come so soon, right? Besides, that boy is missing. What does it have to do with us? Why are they looking for trouble with us?" "What do you know?" Li Liping glared at Zhang Li. "Someone wants to make trouble for that boy. Now he is missing and can't be found, so they will look for us, right? So I hurried over and took away everything I could, especially the dowry my mother brought, which included several gold chains. I can't let others take it cheaply." After a while, the elevator went up, but as soon as the door opened, Li Liping was dumbfounded. The corridor was full of people, all of whom were muscular and wearing t-shirts. They were holding steel pipes, baseball bats and other things in their hands, staring at Li Liping. At this time, it was too late to run away. Immediately, two big men rushed up and pulled the couple out. The passengers in the elevator saw it and didn't dare to say a word, so they closed the elevator door and left. Li Liping and his wife were surrounded by a group of big men in the middle, trembling. He bravely asked, "Who are you? What do you want to do?" From his current angle, he could see Li Anping's house. The door had been pried open long ago, and things were thrown all over the floor, as if it had been turned over long ago. "Who are these two?" the big man in the lead asked with his chin raised high, wearing a pair of sunglasses and a bare head. The younger brother beside him looked at the notebook in his hand and replied, "They are the biological son and daughter-in-law of that old man." The bald man glanced at Li Liping and said disdainfully, "Li Anping is in trouble. Do you know where he is?" Hearing this, Li Liping hurriedly told the situation, fearing that the other party would make a move. "He has nothing to do with us. We helped Lawyer Su find that little beast. Who knew he was an ungrateful wolf, but he screwed us to death and finally killed my mother. If I see him, I can't beat him to death. According to him, this is in broad daylight after all, and he, Li Anping, has no contact with him. The other party should not be too messy after knowing the situation." But the bald man just sneered and stretched out his hand to grab Zhang Li. Li Liping wanted to block him, but was slapped to the ground by the other party. The bald man grabbed Zhang Li's hair, causing her to scream. Li Liping sat on the ground with a pale face, a large swelling on his face, and looked at the bald man in fear. The bald man snorted coldly, then pulled out a dagger from his waist and pressed it against Zhang Li's face. The blade rubbed against Zhang Li's face, squeezing out a line of blood, and scared Zhang Li to scream continuously. Your grandma, are you fooling around with me? Do you know who I am?" As the bald man said, several younger brothers around Li Liping immediately kicked him. "Kneel down. Don't you know Brother Chang? You scolded the neighbor." Chang Zheng slashed with a knife, leaving a hideous scar on Zhang Li's face immediately. Zhang Li cried wildly, but was kicked on the calf by Chang Zheng and fell to the ground. "What are you yelling for? If you yell again, I'll stab you a few more times." Zhang Li immediately stopped talking in fear. Seeing this, Chang Zheng walked up to Li Liping again and kicked him in the face. Li Liping had no choice but to kneel on the ground with his head in his hands, allowing him to be punched and kicked. Another kick landed on the kidneys on Li Liping's back, causing him to twitch in pain. "Damn it, you dare to come here with such a cowardly look? I waited for a whole night in vain." Li Liping was hit a few more times. Chang Zheng's punches and feet were already very heavy, and Li Liping's body was not in good condition. After a series of punches and kicks, he was already somewhat unconscious. Chang Zheng was very angry. Brother Huo called him at 3 o'clock in the middle of the night yesterday, told him about the hospital, and asked him to quickly catch Li Enping. He thought that the other party was penniless, so he had to go home anyway. So he squatted at the door of Li Enping's house with his younger brother. As a result, Li Enping didn't go home after squatting for a whole night, and only Li Liping came. Damn it, where is Li Enping? Will you tell me? I really don't know where he is. Stop hitting me. I really don't know, Li Liping cried and cried with his head on the ground. Chang Zheng was furious and kicked Li Liping. Are you still pretending? Suddenly, the cell phone rang. Chang Zheng answered the call and turned to Li Liping and said, "You are lucky. We knocked him out and took him away." Then he put the knife to Zhang Li's neck and threatened viciously, "We will take your man away. If you dare to call the police, you will have to wait for the body to be collected. And if Li Enping contacts you, call us immediately. Do you understand?" After that, he asked his younger brother to hand over the business card. Zhang Li nodded hurriedly, "I understand. I will never call the police. I will definitely contact you when Li Enping comes." At this moment, two middle-aged security guards rushed out of the elevator, pointed at Chang Zheng and shouted, "What are you doing? Let the people go, we have called the police." You. Without Chang Zheng saying anything, the younger brothers around him immediately beat the two middle-aged security guards with fists and sticks. These security guards are just laid-off employees in their 40s and 50s, how can they be opponents of these gangsters? They were knocked down in 2 or 3 hits, and the steel pipes and wooden sticks hit the heads of the two security guards, and blood immediately splashed all over the floor. Until the two security guards fell to the ground with their last breath, Chang Zheng stopped his men. He stepped on the hand of a security guard, listened to the other party's painful groan, and then nodded with satisfaction. He took the steel pipe from his younger brother's hand, smashed it hard on the iron door beside the corridor, pointed at the gate and roared, "Don't think I don't know who called them here. Whoever dares to meddle in other people's business again will buy a coffin." The neighbors behind the door were trembling with fear. "Leave 2 people here to wait for the boy, and the rest will follow me." After saying that, he took Li Liping away with an arrogant face. Li Enping was walking towards home. Although he didn't know what to do next, he had to find a way to help his grandmother get revenge. Before that, he had to go home first, get some money, and change clothes. But as soon as he walked downstairs, he heard a bunch of ants talking, as if something big had happened. When Li Enping was feeling confused, he suddenly found that he could hear what the other party was saying even though he was more than 10 meters away. Alas, the Li family is really miserable. Li Enping just committed a crime, and his grandmother passed away. Now that the eldest son is back, he was also arrested by the underworld. Be careful not to talk nonsense, that's Huo Qing's people. They kill people without blinking. Look, Zhang Li got a knife on her face, and she didn't even dare to fart. Is it really that powerful? The person who came this time is called Chang Zheng. He is Huo Qiang's subordinate who specializes in debt collection. He is cruel and ruthless, and has a strong backstage. You see, they called the security guard in the building, but he was beaten half to death. I heard that one of his legs was disabled. Li Enping was furious when he heard this, and he couldn't help but rush behind the ants who were talking. Are you talking about Li Liping who used to live on the 13th floor? Seeing him being arrested like this, why didn't anyone call the police? Just let these underworld gangs run rampant. He couldn't believe that there were such rampant underworld gangs in broad daylight. The antis were startled when they saw someone rushing out, but they calmed down when they saw the beggar like Li Enping. I was so scared, I thought someone had heard us. The auntie patted her chest and looked at Li Enping and said, "Little beggar, what do you know? Behind Chang Zheng stands Huo Qing, who is the big brother of Zhongdu. Who dares not to give face to him in the black and white world? And this Chang Zheng is under Huo Qiang to collect debts for him, so he is very cruel." "How cruel?" Li Enping asked with a frown. I heard that he was collecting debts in the city center last month and killed someone, but nothing happened. Don't the police care about this kind of scum? Li Anping said angrily. Is Huo Qing more powerful than the government? No, there is a lot of water here. Li Anping asked more and found that he couldn't get anything out. After all, they were just a few old ladies. They were already very good at gossiping to know these rumors about the Inzongdu. So he went upstairs to his home. However, knowing what happened to Li Liping in advance, he was cautious and took the stairs instead of the elevator. In this kind of old-style public housing with elevators, no one usually takes the stairs, because the floors are high and the stairs are narrow and slanted, which makes it very hard to walk. Ordinary people may be out of breath after walking a few steps. But Li Anping was fine. With his strengthened body, he climbed the stairs very quickly and reached the 13th floor in a blink of an eye without feeling tired at all. He carefully looked through the crack of the security door and found two big men wandering in the corridor, chatting incoherently. How long do we have to wait? What if this guy gets the news and doesn't come? Wouldn't we have waited in vain? One person complained. The other man smiled helplessly. There's nothing we can do. I don't know who did it this time to make Brother Lang and the others fall. Lord Huo was furious and was determined to take revenge. He called up several big brothers in the middle of the night, not only Brother Chang, but also Brother Fei and Brother Bao. Now the only clue is the missing kid Li Anping. Lord Huo has already named him. This kid first offended young Master Shang, and now he has offended Lord Huo. I think after he is caught, he can't die even if he wants to. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 9. Do you want to save your uncle? Then eat these two guys. Hee, they are not good people anyway, and eating them will enhance your strength. Your next actions will have a higher success rate. Leave me alone. The tempting voice sounded in Li Anping's mind, but he ignored it. Looking at the two tall gangsters and thinking of all the things he had encountered, Li Anping gradually clenched his fists, and there was a burst of resentment in his eyes. Let's start with you. Li Anping opened the door and walked towards the two big men. His appearance changed drastically now, and the other party didn't even recognize him. Boy, who are you? Do you recognize Li Anping? Li Anping didn't reply. He silently walked up to the two of them and punched a big man in the chest. With a bang, the big man flew 2 meters away and hit the wall. There was a feeling of tightness in his chest and he passed out. The other big man felt a figure flash past and his companion had fallen. As soon as he reacted, Li Anping punched him again. Their physical quality is far different from Li Anping's. Regardless of strength, speed, or reaction, they are completely suppressed by Li Anping, and they are no match at all. Without enough time to react, Li Anping punched the big man in the face. He howled miserably and leaned back. But Li Anping grabbed his neck, pulled him back, and punched him in the head again. 2 punches in a row, the big man was hit so hard that stars appeared in his eyes. If Li Anping didn't hold back his hand because he wanted to ask him something, he might have fainted like the first big man. Where did you take Li Liping? Who sent you here? The big man listened to Li Anping's question, but turned a deaf ear. Instead, he raised his foot and hit Li Anping's lower body with his knee. However, Li Anping easily blocked it with his other hand, holding his calf in his hand and gradually tightening it until it hurt. Let me go, boy, do you know who we are? The big man felt as if his calf was being tightened by an iron hoop, and it was getting tighter and tighter, but he still shouted, you little bastard, kill me if you have the guts, or I will kill your whole family. Humph, Li Anping snorted coldly, but let go of his hand and let the big man sit on the ground. Thinking that Li Anping had succumbed to his threat, the big man then cursed loudly, Damn it, boy, where are you doing? How dare you touch Brother Chang's people? I tell you that you are dead this time. Kneel down and apologize first. After Li Anping heard what he said, he just stepped on the big man's calf. With a click, the big man's leg bone broke. Ah! The big man's scream turned into a groan in the middle of his scream, and Li Anping pinched his mouth. Where did you take Li Liping? If you don't tell me, he will be on the other side. The big man was usually just a gangster who followed Chang Zheng, and his toughness and arrogance just now were just the inertia left by following Chang Zheng for too long. How could he withstand this kind of torture? After being glared at by Li Anping, he confessed everything. It turns out that Chang Zheng has a lair on the outskirts of Zhongdu. If he catches a debt collector, he will be locked up there and tortured. He himself lived there with a dozen brothers. The person who sent Chang Zheng was named Huo Qing, a big boss in Zhongdu city. Chang Zheng, Huo Qing. Li Anping chewed on these two names. Judging from the previous conversation between the two big men and the subsequent questioning, it seemed that Huo Qing was Chang Zheng and the eldest brother of the two in the hospital. Shang Zhenbang paid, and the money went into the hands of Huo Qing. Huo Qing sent people to kill Li Anping's grandmother, and then sent Alung and Laonyo to the hospital to kill Li Anping. So if Li Anping wanted to take revenge, he would have several targets. The first would be the person who killed his grandma personally, and then Huo Qing and Shang Zhenbang. Then there were Shang Angguo and Wei Shishi who framed him. After asking a few more times, Li Anping knocked the big man unconscious and walked towards his home. He also wanted to get some money and a change of clothes. Aren't you going to silence them? Just leave them here casually. Li Anping said, you don't have to worry about it, I have my principles. Hey, you just have too little experience. Kindness is like a poison. Those who don't clean it up will eventually die from it. The door of the room had already been pried open by Chang Zheng and his men. The drawers and cabinets in the room were all opened, and the clothes and daily necessities inside were roughly thrown to the ground. Li Anping didn't bother to tidy up, so he walked into the room and found that the entire bed had been turned over, and the thousands of dollars usually hidden under the bed were gone. In desperation, Li Anping could only take dozens of change from the drawer, then took a shower and changed into sportswear. However, because of his deformed figure, the suit he wears now is obviously a bit tight. After thinking about it again, Li Anping walked into the kitchen, found a fruit knife, and stuffed it into his arms. After looking around the house, Li Anping smiled bitterly. Apart from this fruit knife, there was nothing else that could be used as a weapon. Although he was very confident in his current body, Li Anping was still a little unsure when he thought about facing more than 10 vicious gangsters. But after thinking about it, there was no one who could help him. Hey, are you scared? Then why are you hesitating? Eat the two people at the door. After you increase your strength, the so-called underworld will be vulnerable to you. Li Anping exhaled and said, then what's the difference between me and them? No, if I do that, I will be worse than them. Humph, childish sense of justice. The voice sounded dismissive. Why haven't you understood after going through so many things? This world is originally dark and ugly, and your so-called bright justice does not exist at all. Li Anping shook his head. No, I have changed. Now I will no longer ask for help from others. I will no longer ask those in power to give me justice. I will use my own strength to pursue justice. You will die. Then you can't eat people. Li Anping shook his head firmly, ignored the voices in his mind, and strode towards the door. Recalling Laonyo's blood-covered body in his mind, Li Anping couldn't help but trembled. I never want to experience that feeling again. Since strengthening his body, Li Anping's memory and thinking ability have also been greatly improved. Now he has the entire map of Zhongdu in his mind. After nightfall, Li Anping rushed to the place mentioned by the big man and found that it was an abandoned factory. From a distance, he could hear a wolf dog barking inside. The door was closed and 2 vans were parked outside. The 3-meter-high fence is still covered with barbed wire and glass shards. Li Enping walked around the factory from a distance, but he was not sure whether this was Chang Zheng's lair. At this moment, a group of big men suddenly sprang out from the surroundings, holding machetes in their hands, and surrounded Li Enping. The 2 leaders also opened their clothes, revealing the pistols at their waists. When he saw only a few people, Li Enping planned to resist, but the moment he saw the pistol, his nerves suddenly became tense. The deterrent effect of firearms is self-evident to people who have grown up in modern society. In particular, Li Enping had no experience with firearms. A man touched the handle of the gun, walked up to Li Enping, and patted Li Enping's face gently. "You were the one who beat us? Are you checking Brother Chang's location?" "I was careless, I didn't expect them to have guns. This position is surrounded by several guns, so I can't be sure of escaping unscathed." Li Enping didn't notice at all that he was still calmly thinking about countermeasures at this time, instead of being afraid like ordinary people. I don't know whether this is the effect of physical transformation, or the so-called instinct that the voice said. Hey, I'll let you shut up, now someone has tipped you off," the voice gloated. Li Enping ignored the voice in his head. He just looked at the people around him coldly without saying a word. However, most people would obviously be frightened when they were surrounded by a group of thugs like this. The man seemed to have concluded that Li Enping was no longer a threat. He slapped Li Enping on the head and laughed. "I heard from Lao Song that you are good at beating, and you even kicked one of his legs off? Our boss wants to personally interrogate you, let's go." Li Enping was pushed by several big men and led to the factory. 2 men with guns walked behind him, staring at Li Enping's every move. He didn't resist and followed everyone into the factory. "The distance is too close, we have to wait for the opportunity." When I walked into the factory, I saw several round tables set up in the open space behind the gate, and a dozen big men were eating barbecue and drinking beer. When Li Enping walked in, he stared at him maliciously. After the 2 wolf dogs walked in from Li Enping, they kept barking at Li Enping. "Damn it, what a shit, 2 people come and take the dog away." The person behind him pushed Li Enping on the shoulder. "Let's go, you are very good at fighting. There are more than 30 people here today. Let me see how many you can fight." As he spoke, a big man was asked to search Li Enping. He took out the fruit knife hidden in his arms. "Oh, you brought a knife," the big men around pointed at Li Enping and laughed. He also stabbed Li Enping in the body with the knife. Li Enping's face was solemn and he remained silent. No one thinks that Li Enping will resist. They have seen this kind of situation too many times. No matter how courageous the person is on the road, he will not have any unnecessary resistance when surrounded by so many people with weapons. This is human nature. If you resist, you will be killed. This is the instinct that remains in the human heart after countless years of evolution. So along the way, several people patted Li Enping on the back of the head and laughed unbridled. The person who had spoken to Li Enping earlier had already gone to the warehouse of the factory to report to Chang Zheng. "You wait." There was also a big man who had just finished the barbecue and his mouth was full of oil. When he saw Li Enping walking past him, he grabbed Li Enping's clothes and wiped his mouth with it. Seeing Li Enping's lack of reaction, the people around him laughed even more unbridled. As long as you grab the people around you and eat a few people's souls, you can fight against them. No need to eat meat, just kill them. A voice full of temptation sounded in Li Enping's mind again. "They are just gangsters and scum. If you eat them, you will save countless people who will be tortured by them in the future." Li Enping didn't answer. He frowned deeply. He didn't expect Chang Zheng's lair to be so dangerous. What I didn't even expect was that his men would be so arrogant and dare to use guns in broad daylight. The group of people walked into the warehouse and looked around. Only some goods and shelves from the original factory remained in the warehouse, leaving a large open space. Chen Zheng sat on a Grand Master's chair with a golden sword in his hand, holding a wine bottle in his hand, and a row of younger brothers stood beside him. After Li Anping came in, the big men who had stayed outside also filed in and sat in a corner of the warehouse, leaving Li Anping standing in the middle, looking murderous. But Li Anping didn't even look at them. His eyes were all attracted to another corner of the warehouse. It was an iron cage similar to the one used to keep tigers in zoos. There was a bed in the cage, and a blood-stained man was tied to the bed. But the most terrifying thing was that the man had lost one of his feet. The part below the knee was chopped off and wrapped in dirty gauze. The man stared at the ceiling with numb eyes, as if he had lost the will to live. That was Li Liping, Li Anping's nominal brother. He always lies and wants to escape. There is no way. I can only take one of his legs to make him behave himself. Chen Zheng pointed to the iron bed and said, "Do you know how many people have slept on this bed? What kind of heroes lie on this bed, and they all give in within 3 days." Although Li Liping and Li Anping have a mediocre relationship due to their age, he is his brother after all. At this moment, Li Anping only felt as if there was a fire burning in his heart. He stared coldly at Chen Zheng, who was sitting on the chair. "Does he have a grudge against you? Why can you be so cruel to a stranger?" As soon as he said this, someone came out from behind and kicked him in the thigh, trying to make him kneel down. But Li Anping didn't react at all when he kicked him. Instead, the man bounced and almost fell to the ground. Li Anping looked back at him. The man just felt that with so many people watching him, it would be too embarrassing to just give up, and after a slight pause, he wanted to draw his sword. Chen Zheng, who was not far away, waved his hand, told him to get off, and then sneered, "You are quite courageous. I am Chen Zheng. Tell me, why did you come to me?" Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 10. Aren't everything they did evil? This kind of scum cannot survive 10,000 deaths. So eat them and let the power of evil become the source of your justice. No, I shouldn't eat people. Boy, Brother Chang is asking you something. A younger brother slapped Li Anping on the back of the head, bringing him back from his thoughts. Chen Zheng looked at Li Anping with an increasingly unkind look. Everyone who comes out to mess around is competing to see who is tougher. You are tougher than Lao Song and others, and can beat them better, so you can break his leg. But you beat my man, you dare to come to my territory. Now we are more ruthless than you. Do you think it's okay if you don't say anything? This truth sounded to the hearts of all the big men present and felt that it was reasonable and in line with the rules of the Tao. But to Li Anping's ears, it felt unusually harsh. Do you know how to kill someone? Suddenly, Li Anping asked a question. Did you also kill the old lady who lived in his house? His tone was calm and scary. Oh, I sent someone there. The person who did it is in this room. But what can you do? Chen Zheng was silent for a moment, narrowed his eyes slightly, spread his hands and said, "What, you have something to do with him? But this matter is too deep for you to imagine, and you are so nosy about the rules of the world, making it difficult for me to do it. So your rules are that you can kill people and steal money, but if others bully you, you have to give you an explanation? You have harmed so many people, have you given them an explanation? Do they just deserve it?" When Li Anping said this, the people around him were already scolding and gearing up. Cut off his hand and see if he still has sex. Damn it, what are you talking about? Let's destroy him first. He will cry later. Chen Zheng looked at Li Anping with only a sneer on his face. He walked step by step in front of Li Anping, feeling funny again. The naive young man thought he could fight, so he meddled in his own business. Chen Zheng made up his mind, looked at Li Anping funny and said, "Now he is curious, how long will it take for the other party to give in? 1 minute? 1 hour? Haha, young man, you just don't understand things. You are even crazier than I was when I first debuted. Kneel down and admit your mistake. Tell me what your relationship is with their family. I only need one of your hands. How can you still get out alive, otherwise? Chang Zheng pulled out a dagger from his waist, pressed it on Li Anping's cheek, and said in a serious tone, I will peel off your skin, really little by little. Unexpectedly, as soon as Chang Zheng finished speaking, Li Anping responded directly, you should be the one to admit your mistake. I just came to you to ask for justice. He, you're doing well. Chang Zheng laughed at Li Fang's childishness. Do you know how long it's been since no one teased me like this? You think you're ruthless and tough enough, right? Damn it, what on earth are you doing? Do you understand the situation? There are so many people here, and one spitting on you would kill you. The big men around him had begun to boo, and steel pipes and machetes were taken out. Li Anping stood in the center, like a little sheep surrounded by wolves. He lowered his head and said silently, I have died once, before. I don't have the strength to rely on others to uphold justice. But now that I finally have the strength, I can resist you. How can I bow my head? However, Li Anping's voice was mixed with other people's voices, and no one except Chang Zheng could hear it clearly. Looking at Li Anping's face, he felt that the current situation was simply ridiculous. He had never seen anyone in this situation, surrounded by dozens of people with knives and guns, still arguing with him like this. Even the superheroes in comics are nothing more than that, right? Chang Zheng only felt that his authority was seriously offended by Li Anping. What he hated most was when others looked down on him. Withdrawing the dagger, Chang Zheng said angrily, then show me how you resist. After saying that, he slapped Li Anping in the face. He has given up talking to Li Anping. It makes no sense at all. This guy must have lost his mind after reading comics. He is simply a fool. There was a snap, and there was silence all around. Everyone stared blankly as Li Anping took his hand back. Opposite him, Chang Zheng's cheek became red and swollen at a speed visible to the naked eye. He was slapped by Li Anping. Hum him to death. Chang Zheng's face turned livid, and his whole face was twisted with anger. Don't even shoot, he waved his hand around, tie him up, I'm going to cut him. If you feed the dog meat, you won't be able to die even if you want. I will torture you for 3 days and 3 nights. But before he finished speaking, Li Anping punched him in the stomach. He flew 2 meters away and sat down on the ground. He vomited out all the food he had eaten before and felt cramps in his abdomen. Li Anping's punch just now seemed to break his intestines. After knocking Chang Zheng down with one punch, Li Anping turned around and kicked the big man who was charging from behind in the stomach. With just one kick, the 1.8-meter figure of the opponent was thrown away, knocking down a group of people. At the same time, Li Anping's other hand had already caught the steel pipe at his side and hit him on the shoulder. With a slight exertion, he pulled the steel pipe out of the hand of a big man. Before the big man could react, he was hit in the face by a pipe and fell down with his head covered in blood. 4 more people rushed up, machetes, steel pipes, all kinds of weapons smashed at Li Anping. But their speed was too slow in Li Anping's eyes. Just like the old man and old woman doing morning exercises in the park, his brain even had time to think about which one to hit first and which one to hit later. So the steel pipe swept hard, and the 2 people were knocked out. In mid-air, the parts of them that were swept by the steel pipe showed a strange distortion, just like plastic toys torn by children. Taking a step forward, Li Anping dodged the attack of the other 2 behind him, turned around, and the steel pipe hit a big man's face like a dragon swinging its tail. The huge force deformed the big man's cheekbones, and several teeth flew out of his mouth and fell to the ground. At the same time, the remaining big man had not reacted yet, and the steel pipe had hit his head from top to bottom. He didn't even scream, and he fell down with blood foam at the mouth. Li Anping didn't dare to hold back at all at this moment. Facing the mob around him, he knew that any mercy would be cruel to himself. He knocked down several people in a row, and the people watching around him didn't even react, because Li Anping's movements were too fast. From the side, it seemed that he just waved his hand and the person fell down. Damn, you dare to fight back. Kill him. Beat him to death. A man walked to the corner, grabbed a fire bottle on the ground, and threw it directly at Li Anping. The fire bottle was almost as long as an ordinary person's arm, whistling. If an ordinary person was hit, he would definitely be broken and bleeding. But Li Anping actually took a step forward and caught the fire bottle with one hand, staring at the man, and looked at him for a second. The man probably didn't expect that someone could catch it, and was slightly stunned for a second. The next moment, Li Anping had thrown the fire bottle back. The fire bottle was almost a red line, hitting the man's face directly, smashing the man's nose bridge into a dent, and fell down without a sound. At this time, several people rushed to Li Anping's side, but they didn't even touch the corner of Li Anping's clothes, and fell to the ground with a series of hits. All of them were hit in the face by the steel rod. The most serious one had half of the flesh on his cheek torn off. Li Anping didn't know how to fight, he just used the greatest strength and the fastest speed to hit the opponent's face. As for why he hit the face, it was just because he thought it was a vital point. Hiss. Taking a breath of cold air, the few people rushing behind them almost subconsciously slowed down their pace when they saw this scene, but they bumped into the people behind them and squeezed together. Li Anping walked up silently, knocked down 5 more people one by one. The abuse had stopped long ago. In fact, by now, everyone had already discovered that something was wrong. During this period, several machetes were thrown at Li Anping, but he caught the handles of the knives with one hand and threw them back. The timing of each knife flying over was almost the same, but Li Anping caught it and threw it back, and then caught the next machete and threw it back. It was just like performing acrobatics. If there were an audience, it would probably be full of applause. But with such a person as an opponent, the big men just felt chilled. At this moment, a gunshot rang out. After Chang Zheng fired a shot at the ceiling, he raised his pistol and walked towards Li Anping, cursing. Damn it, fight, aren't you very good at fighting? As if he was afraid of Li Anping's skills, Chang Zheng stopped 2 meters away from the opponent and pointed his pistol at Li Anping's chest. Keep fighting. Let's see who is faster, you or my gun. Damn it, Chang Zheng frowned deeply, and while speaking, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Obviously, the punch from Li Anping just now was very uncomfortable. Throw away the steel pipe in your hand. He raised his chin and shouted to the big man beside him, take out your guns, go up and tie him up. Don't block me, go up from behind and tie him up. Obviously, Li Anping's back just now made him feel scared, and he didn't dare to give the other party any chance. Seeing that his hands were held by someone and were about to be tied up with hemp rope, Li Anping suddenly kicked the ground fiercely and rushed towards Chang Zheng, as if he wanted to fight to the death. But as soon as he moved, Chang Zheng grinned and shot, a blood flower bloomed on Li Anping's thigh, his feet softened, and he was already half kneeling on the ground. The voice in his mind laughed, what a childish resistance. If you had kidnapped their boss at the beginning instead of thinking about subduing them, you wouldn't be so passive now. Li Anping gritted his teeth, his thigh flesh was pierced by a bullet. Fortunately it was not the aorta, but the muscle was torn. Unless he jumped on one foot, he couldn't move. Seeing Li Anping being hit in the thigh, Chang Zheng walked up with a sneer and hit Li Anping in the face with the butt of his gun. You want to bite me when you are about to die? What era is this? Do you think your fist can be faster than my gun? Chang Zheng raised the gun again and swung the barrel at Li Anping's face. The blood splashed on his face, making his smile even more ferocious. You guys beat him up first. Chang Zheng laughed and said, I will do it myself and cut off his penis later.